Okay, I have the awesome privilege today. I'll remove these worldly things here of getting together with my friend Brent Austin. We met how many years ago, Mr. Brent?
Oh, lots. 20 some years ago, 1998.
1998. Were you with the military when we met?
I was actually out of the military. I was in, and then I got out, and then I got back in 2000.
Okay, where do you live now, Mr. Brent?
I live in the beautiful place of North Bay, Ontario, Canada.
North Bay, Ontario, Canada. Is that around Thunder Bay area somewhere?
We're east. We're about 4 hours west of Ottawa and about 3.5 hours north of Toronto.
Okay, and how did we meet?
Well, actually, I had just had a business out in British Columbia, and we'd lost that, and we'd come back out to Alberta, live with our family until we could get back on our feet. And I was helping my Uncle Ray when he was building his log cabin addition onto his trailer. And you were there, and it was a chance meeting, and very memorable, very pleasurable. So,
Some 20 years ago. Isn't that something?
yes.
And this is 25, 26 years later. You have a family. My family's grown up. We met Mr. Brent Austin, and I think we had, did we have the barn at the time? We had a little Bible study in an old dance hall or barn is where we'd meet on Sundays, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you had invited my wife Linda and I with our little girls at the time, Megan and Cassie, not so little no more, but you initially started inviting me to men's prayer groups, which was being held at Uncle Ray's in his addition there. And as soon as after a couple of meetings there, you invited us out to Raymond. So that was quite an experience.
Tell us more from your perspective. I know how it was from our perspective. What was it like from your perspective?
It was it was scary, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I knew my uncle had become a Christian later on in life, and I was curious about that. And my sister and her husband were Christians, and but I didn't have any time for that. I thought, I have better things to do on Sunday. And then I met the great Sam Hofer, and you had invited me to these men's Bible studies. And to be honest, I was just being polite and said, yeah, okay, I'll go. I'll find out what this is about. And I couldn't believe it when we first started going to these. And I don't want to reveal your story, but when we had made some prayers with regard to your pontoon boats, and by the end of the week, those prayers came true, I was dumbfounded. I was like, maybe there's something to this. And so I went a little bit more, and I just started to research. And I remember speaking to you one day at the barn, at the Red Barn, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna study everything that you tell me. And if you're lying to me, I'm out of here, and I'm taking everybody with me. I don't know if you recall.
I remember you saying that. I remember you saying to me, if you're lying to me, he says, I'm out of here. I said, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back, you mentioned the pontoons. Is that where we had 8 pontoons sitting? We couldn't sell them. It was the middle of summer, and we went and had prayer meeting. God help us sell these pontoons. And the IMAX movie people called up and bought 4 of our boats and did the movie T-Rex, and we rented our boat for one boat was used to haul the movie crew food, another one was to run a camera, another one was for supplies. They bought all these boats with the motors, and then when the movie was done, they gave them back to us, so we got to sell them twice. That's a whole nother story, but that was a tremendous answer to prayer.
Absolutely. And that was right after we met. And I thought, there's no way in the world that these prayers are going to be answered. And within a week, because the following week you come back and you'd said that IMAX had called you and wanted these pontoon boats. And then when they get back to you, those are like, oh, wow, man, that's insane.
You know, a part of that story that I haven't said before is I had an overdraft back then that was maxed out. I maxed it out. This lady called me up and she needed money to fix her daughter's tooth. Her teeth were really bad and her husband had left her. And so she phoned me up in the middle of the day and I went into her house and I gave her $500 and I was driving away from her house and I figured, you know what? $500 doesn't even fix a tooth. So I went into my banker and I says, how much money do I have in my overdraft? And he says, $1,800. So I says, can I use it all? And they says, well, then you're wiped right out. I says, that don't matter. I says, somebody really needs it. Told him what I'm doing with it. And I gave this $1,800 to this lady to help her with some food and to fix her daughter's teeth. And because I felt I should. Not everybody who comes around do I do that. At the end of the month, when they bought them boats, and when I sold them the second time, I had $18,000 cash in that account. And to me, that was directly connected, but I had forgotten that you was there at that time. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, it was amazing to me. And then like the story with my wife and I, we had gone in partners with my parents in a fruit stand in an orchard out in British Columbia. And 2 years later, the previous owner foreclosed on us, which was devastating. I had a 1 and a 3-year-old, and we couldn't go on welfare. We couldn't go anywhere because we had been the owners, and all we could do was rent a U-Haul, and everything we could put in that U-Haul is all we could keep. And we moved back to Alberta. We moved in with our in-laws for a couple of years, and I remember I couldn't find a job. And that's why I was helping my Uncle Ray, just not for money, but just because I had the time. And we had met, and one of their prayer requests was that I could find a job. Right after the prayer request, I got 3 job offers.
Wow.
And I had to actually start choosing who I wanted to work for. And
wow.
It was just amazing.
See, that stuff is coming back. I forgot that. Just 1 second there, Mr. Brent. I'm going to just turn on the air conditioner here.
Sure.
You're really bringing back a lot of memories. Then I remember one day you says, I'd like to be baptized. How was that from your perspective?
Again, that was a scary thing because that was a big commitment for me, right? Like, is this stuff real? I didn't want to get involved with any type of a cult or whatever, right? And so, but I remember you baptized me on Easter Sunday out in a pool in one of the places out in Raymond.
Yeah, we rented the mental home, the old people, and you and Nellie Ann and a few of you was being baptized there in the pool. I remember that.
Yes.
Yes, I can still
amazing
see
day. Yes. That was an amazing time. And then after that, it was wonderful because, like I've always been close with my mom and that, but it wasn't until after I was baptized it wasn't until afterwards that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, way better.
Sorry. It wasn't until after that my mom started to attend the Red Barn with my grandma and some of my other relatives and that. So it was a really good blessing. So we have an amazing relationship now ever since that time. So
that is so awesome. So that was life-changing, as that little barn. I remember that little barn started, and I remember I said to my wife one day, I said, I'm going to just reach out in the community, and if nobody shows up, we'll just go sit in the back bend of a church. But if somebody shows up, we'll just simply visit with them, make coffee, and tell them the good news that Christ came to pay for our sins. And there was some days there. I mean, people remember they brought their dogs. Everybody come for coffee. My sister and I think Liz, Ray's wife, would always go ahead and have the coffee ready. And sometimes there was over 100 people there. And for Southern Alberta, that's a lot of people that come out.
Yeah, that is, especially in a Mormon community.
Yeah,
Because
yes.
everybody down there is Mormon. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So tell me more. You went then and joined the military again.
Yes.
Tell us how that went.
Well, it was like, despite some people's views on the military and that, I think it was a true blessing to be able to serve my country. And we had been struggling, and it was after 2 years I had applied for the military back again, and they lost my file twice. It took them 2 more years to get me back in the military. So it was a 4 year span that I was out. And it gave me those 2 years of being able to get to know you and your family and go through with the Red Barn and all that kind of stuff. So it was almost like it was meant to be that that big delay was in. And so I got in 2000, and I got posted here to North Bay, Ontario. And I got the call from the recruiter, and he says, "Yeah, you're going to North Bay in 3 weeks." I go, "North where?" Because like anytime they say north, man, you think cold. But it's actually not that far north. It's just the North Bay of Nipissing. So we got here in 2000, and I spent 3 years here, and then we got posted as a family to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And then we spent 5 years there, policing and doing that. I did a couple of tours while I was there as well. And then from there, I got posted back to North Bay in 2008. And in 2010, I got promoted to warrant officer, or petty officer first class, Navy. And I got posted to Pakistan, unaccompanied, which means my family stayed in North Bay. And I went there for 2 years. And then I took my release from Pakistan in 2012 and came up.
Can you tell us more about going over? Did you say you went to Afghanistan, Pakistan? So you became a military police?
Yes, so I've always been a military police my entire career. It just depends on where we are and what our jurisdiction is. So it's like, it'd be the same thing as the North Bay City Police.
Uh-huh.
Do not go down to Toronto and police. They don't have the authority to do that. The military police were a federal police force, but our jurisdiction is like the bases and anybody that's on the bases. So if there's civilians that work there, if they're on our establishment, then then we can enforce highway traffic acts, criminal codes, that kind of stuff, Narcotic Control Act, that kind of stuff. The military, if they go off the base, we still have jurisdiction over those, but we would do like a split investigation with the civilian police, whatever. When I was posted to Germany for 3 years with my family, well, with Linda, and that's where Megan was born, all the civilians that accompanied the military. So my wife, all of a sudden, she had to become subject to the Code of Service Discipline, which is what the military is. And so by that, she actually fell under military law. So even though the families lived off of the military establishment in Germany, like our base was Lahr, but we had Langenwickel and all kinds of little places around communities. The spouses were actually subject to the Code of Service Discipline, so they could be charged and convicted in a military court.
Wow. That's incredible. So tell me, after you got baptized, going back a little, how did that affect your career in the military?
It was an eye opener because before I got out, I was not a Christian. I had no desire type thing. But then once I got baptized and I accepted the knocking on the door from the Lord, then when I got in, I started seeing a whole different mentality in the military that once I was a part of, now I'm trying not to be part of. Like I said, there's some fantastic people in the military. There's good and bad in everything. But you really had to start thinking along the lines of a Christian working for the government and instead of just working for yourself. Like my previous days as an MP, I was all about the money, the promotion, the glory, that kind of stuff. And then when I got back in, I was more about helping people. So, looking for lost children, or when you go to a domestic dispute, instead of laying down the law, you separate them and you try to help them rather than
bring them together instead of
exactly. So, yeah, so it was. I think the Lord had put me in certain circumstances to be there at the right times, maybe.
So how does it feel to you now when all this anti-police and the stuff that's happening in the States and Minnesota and everywhere, where people are putting so much hate on, let's say, the police force, the military police, and all this insanity? What do you feel when you hear that, being you've been there, you've done that?
Yeah, it's very hurtful. I take it very personally, and I've never mistreated anybody. In fact, most of my arrests were all the guy came willingly. It was like, yeah, okay, I have to handcuff you because it's the law for my protection of yours. But there was very, very few times when, at the time of the arrest, Buddy was still resisting and fighting and stuff. But some people, when they're done up on drugs or if they're super drunk or this kind of stuff, that you just can't reason with these people. But it's very hurtful. But on the other end of the spectrum, I've worked with people that are just like those. Maybe they weren't put in a situation where they've caused somebody to die, but I remember people that I worked with, they were causing fights everywhere they went. They'd go to a simple complaint and it would turn into arrests. And I remember one, no names, no pastoral, but I was working for a certain individual in Germany, and we ended up getting 3 arrests from 3 different situations in 15 minutes. And he caused every one of those arrests. Like, I was dealing with an individual and I had to calm down, and he started playing pokey chess with him. But he started playing pokey chess back, and then he says, arrest him. So I was the junior, so I had to arrest him. Then we got a call to it was an incident at a bar, which was not too far from us. And we went there, and right away he came in and he started screaming at the guy, and, you'll listen to me. And Buddy got his hackles up and started getting upset. And I was ordered to arrest this guy. And then right across the street, this had sort of carried on. We went across for another noise complaint, and I ended up arresting a 3rd person, all within 15 minutes. And not one of those had to be an arrest, at least not at the point where they were. So it was frustrating because I know people like that, and I can't say anything because they're out there and they've got a badge and they think they're invincible.
Yep.
And it's too bad.
Yeah. That's incredible to be on that end of the stick, and you have basically had to do what your senior officer told you to do.
Oh,
what
absolutely.
would have happened in that incident if you wouldn't have?
Oh, I would have been charged for disobeying lawful command, insubordination, possibly conduct unbecoming, that kind of. So there's a slew of charges, and I could have ended up in jail, and then like in the military break, as the Americans call it, and then released from the military.
So there is a big thing about going out and calming people down, isn't there? What comes to my mind is, a
Absolutely.
soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger, don't they? When you just
Yeah.
push somebody's buttons on purpose, you're really being ignorant, aren't you?
Oh, exactly. And like I always had the philosophy, even when I was in the first time, is I'm going to treat the private the same way that I treat the general. They all get the respect that they deserve until they don't deserve it. Once they don't deserve it, then I step up my game and I have to do what I have to do. I mean, I'm there to enforce the laws, and as a military police, we are the eyes and the ears for the commanding officer, and we enforce the criminal code of Canada as well. So, I mean, I have to do what I have to do, but I always try to give people an out and say, let's calm down, let's talk about this. Um,
See, the way I was raised, and I remember when you said you're joining the military, I figured, oh no, he's throwing away his salvation. And I was raised like, you can't carry a gun, thou shalt not kill. And since
yeah,
then, I've got a lot of respect for you because you went and did what you're supposed to do. It's a big difference if I'm being persecuted for my faith, yeah, then I don't go and murder and kill. But the big difference is if somebody just breaks into my house, if somebody just comes to try to hurt my family and that, I'm not being tested for my faith. That's where the Second Amendment kicks in. That's where you phone the police, and the police are literally saying, look, we'll go out there and lay our lives on the line to protect you. And you have family and you have children too. So to me, that is very awesome. So I've totally changed my philosophy that I grew up with. And today, if someone would hurt a child, I gladly would give my life for that. Or hurt a lady or something like that, I'd put my life on the line in a heartbeat and stop them, whatever it took. I guess that's the
absolutely.
difference. That's how I see it, because that
Yeah.
is being a man.
Yeah. The difference is I'm trained and I get paid for that on a daily basis, where
Yeah,
you would do that for free if the
yeah,
need arises.
yeah.
And I used to try to explain this to people saying like, listen, it wasn't my problem when the husband and wife got into this huge argument and he started beating her or vice versa or whatever. Like it wasn't my problem. I was safe at home. I go in there and like there's statistics that saying that there's a good percentage of police officers that are shot and killed before they even get to the house because if they're called to a domestic dispute. Then there's also a good number, and I've had this happen to me, where you go in, you're dealing with a husband, all of a sudden the wife turns on you, and all of a sudden now you've got two combatants, and like you think that you're helping her, and all of a sudden she gets it in her mind there that you're taking away her husband, her financial security, everything. Like, so it's like all of a sudden you got to watch everybody, and it's hard. Like you got to make split decisions or split second decisions, and it's not always the right one, but you don't have time to Monday morning quarterback, right? So, but so, and it's the same thing with the world. Like a lot of people don't want uh, us as UN keepers or stuff like this to get involved with other countries. But it's like, well, it's no different. Like they're combatants, and we try to separate them so that people can cool down. And we do the same thing right down to the municipal level and go into families' homes.
And you probably, so what you're saying, what I'm hearing you say, Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, is the domestic disputes sometimes were by far the most dangerous because there's so much, would you say, emotion involved?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's like usually there's alcohol or drugs involved. So you've got not always, but usually, and so you've always got at least one person that's not thinking clearly. Now, when everybody gets heated, you've got the adrenaline rush, you've got that kind of stuff. So you've got that working against you because when you got adrenaline in somebody's body, they are hard to take down because their pain tolerance is higher. They nothing you say to them really registers. They're not listening to you. This kind of stuff. Plus, you go into a strange environment. They've got, do they have guns? Are they loaded? Because when I deal with people that are trained to kill. And so these guys train on a daily basis with weapons and that. And then you also got knives in the kitchen or whatever. So you have to watch everything. Plus, anytime that I go into a situation, there's always at least one gun present because it's mine. So if I get disarmed, what's this guy going to do to me and to everybody else once he's got my firearm, right? So the thing is when I go into a situation, I'm not allowed to lose. I have to do whatever it takes to get out of that alive. And if somebody put me in that situation, then if I had to take a life, I pray that I never would have, and I didn't. I came close in Haiti, but I pray I never would have to. But if I had to, I'm the one that's got to come home to the family. Because if I don't and Buddy gets my weapon, how many other people is he going to kill, right?
Just from my perspective, I can still see you when you left there, and you looks at me and you said, Sam, if you want to do me a favor, you said, just pray that I never have to use it. And I did. For many years, I prayed for you and wondered where my buddy Brent is. So there was times probably where you were so scared you didn't know whether you were coming or going, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you remember as your most scared time? Give us just the story of a...
Okay, I have a story for you, but it's not so much scared at the time because you go in with the adrenaline and you're ready. But I recall when I was in Haiti, we were there for a few months helping security at the embassy. And we had an American Haitian that lived just down the hill from us, like outside of our compound, but down a little bit of a hill. So we had the high ground, if you would say. And one day we were woken up. We used to get woken up quite regularly to gunfire. There was a lot of drive-by shootings there and stuff while I was there. But there's one particular night, there was two guys working for me, two corporals, and in our villa that we were living at, we got woken up in the middle of the night. And so we grabbed our gun and our Kevlar vest, and we go outside, and we find out that our neighbor that I just met, he was being kidnapped, and we could oversee his house. So we counted seven guys with rifles and guns, and they had taken our new friend, his wife, and a friend of theirs that had been visiting, and they had laid them down on the front porch, and they seen us, and we're like what's going on here? So we're up above behind our fence looking down, and all of a sudden they looked up at us, and then they shot the friend in the leg. And so now we were just far enough there where I ordered my guys to don't shoot because we don't know where everybody is. It's in the middle of the night, but the adrenaline's going, and I'm like, you got to calm down. You got to calm down. So it just happened that they took the three inside, and when our new friend talked to the kidnappers, they said, listen, there's three Canadian military police up there, and they're going to kill you as soon as you walk out that door. Scared them. They left the three and ran out the back door and ran into the woods. And we were able to go down with the local police at PNASH, and we were able to get him to a hospital where he got medical attention, and everything turned out okay. But it was really close because we had our weapons drawn on these guys, and it would have been an easy shot. But there were 7 of them and 3 of us, and who knows if there would have been other casualties. So it was like, but it was adrenaline rush, and it wasn't until later when the adrenaline dumped that it was like, holy man, what did I just get into?
When you thought about it later is when it freaked you out.
Yeah, at the time we were fine. It was you just trained to react. So it was exciting. it was like, wow, you know. But then afterwards, it's like, wow, might not have made it home tonight. So
It's a tremendous thing when a man leaves his wife, his family, and everything, and goes out like you see in some of them riots now, and just gets himself cursed and tested. I mean, everything right in front of you. You know, when do you just take your club and say, you know, just stop this person, crack him across the head? You know, you're trained professionally, and you have laws from your side that you can do this, you can do that, but are there things you're not allowed to do? Like, how strict is your training to refrain from being another human being when somebody's got a finger and screaming at you from 6 inches away?
yeah, well, you're not allowed to engage in a fight. Like you go in with, like I used to be a use of force instructor, and you go in with the training and the techniques for a quick takedown. And whether or not that's a strong swipe with the baton or using the pepper spray, or if you have to, you take a shot. But you got to do it quick. It's not a prolonged fight. So you don't square off with somebody, put up your dukes, and try to do some karate kicks and stuff and that kind of stuff there. So like you got to get down and do that. I was also trained as a bodyguard, close personal protection, and I did bodyguard for 3 different governor generals and stuff. And you're trained to take your VIP and get them out of there as quick as possible. And there's no fighting. You're taking this guy down, and you're trained to kill this guy right now. Because if he gets back up, then you got to fight him again. And who knows what's going to happen, who's going to win.
So tell us, you mentioned training. Tell us more about training, Brent. You trained, I remember years ago, you sent me some pictures. You were training people to fight. Did everybody pass? Or were there some people that you just says, no, you better go home and wash dishes or something? Or did everybody pass as to be able to go out into the force, or how did that work?
Yeah, I was not training recruits. Mine were military police that were already in the trade. So we were teaching them takedown techniques, ground fighting, arrest techniques, how to enter buildings, this and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it was a whole program for several weeks. And everybody graduated at the end of the day because you want to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing by the time that they leave, right? So.
Wow. So you did that for how many years, Brent?
24.
So you was in the force for 24 years.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. Tell me a little
If
bit.
I wouldn't have been out those 4 years, then it would have been 28. But
28, very good. And you retired from the military police in what year?
2012.
2012. So you tell me a little more about Haiti. Your purpose down there was to guard the embassy or the people in the embassy, or tell me about Haiti.
Yeah, basically that's it. Back in 2006, 2006, Haiti was going through some elections. And so our embassy down there, we needed to beef up security. So we already had military police down there. So what we did is we needed they wanted another team of 3 just to go down there and help do the patrols of the area, security, that kind of stuff. Make sure that the Canadians down there that work for the embassy were safe, right? So that's how it started out.
So every time you go in, like every time you go out on a call at night or every day, I mean, you don't think it's today the day I'm going to die, or you just do your job. And does it become like just second nature and you don't think about it much? Like, what goes through your head? I mean, you're packing a gun, you got the law behind you.
Yeah, I remember I remember when I first started. I was 18 and I was like brand new, really had no life experience. And I remember dealing with my first people that were suspects or subjects, that kind of stuff there. And the adrenaline was so bad that my teeth chattered. And I literally, I was shaking. It wasn't, and this was in July. And I remember the person I was dealing with asked me if I was cold because my teeth were chattering. It was like that bad. The adrenaline was just pumping.
Oh,
And back then I couldn't say boo to anybody. Like I was one of those really shy kids, moved around a lot, you know, made friends just so that wouldn't get beat up all the time type of thing. And so I didn't have those abilities to deal with people. But after the years went on, uh, it came second nature. You started being able to read people. You controlled your adrenaline, your emotions. But yeah, every time we did a traffic stop, because we used to try stop people off the bases and stuff there. You don't know what this guy's coming from. Is he speeding because he just robbed a bank? Did he just murder his wife? Is he high on drugs? Does he have a gun? Because there's been several RCMP well, we went to one funeral there where they did a traffic stop in Alberta, and for no reason, but he just turned the gun on him and just blew him away right there at the side of the road, and then drove away. Right. So you're always wondering who you're going to deal with, and then when you get up to the window, and all of a sudden they start back talking to you, and they start getting aggressive and stuff. And now you're going, okay, there's something behind this. What are we dealing with, right? So then you investigate a little bit more, right? But I keep telling everybody, listen, you just say, here's my driver's license registration, and chances are I'll give you a break, and you drive away. And that's it. But some people like to play the pokey chess, and you got to do what you got to do.
how many years did it take where the iron really entered in your soul, where you got angry at crime, where you says, I'm going to go do this. I'm doing the best I can. People aren't pushing me around. I'm doing what's right. And you did it with your heart, soul, and mind instead of from a place of fear or a place of a job. You know what I mean? Where you
Yeah.
just know this is the right thing. How long did that take?
Well, pretty well after I got back in the military, my whole mentality changed. I was now accountable to the Lord. And so it was always like, okay, Jesus is right beside me. Better straighten up and look right. But in the military though, you're always under inspection. As a military person, everybody's always looking at you, whether it be your bosses, and it doesn't matter what trade, but everybody's always looking at you, looking whether or not you polished your boots, or whether or not you got your jacket zipped up or your beret on or something. But as a military police, everybody's looking at you to try to nail you. You know what I mean? So, like if I could watch 10 people roll through a stop sign and nobody says a word, but you see one patrol car roll through a stop sign, and all of a sudden you're getting a call, right?
I never knew you was accountable as a patrol officer that to actually keep the law. My mind always was, man, you can do whatever you want. You can drive as fast as you want. You can roll through 1,000 stop signs. So you're telling me you actually have accountability
Oh boy.
to keep the law yourself?
Oh man. It's
So the
crazy
whole
because
donut thing, just you put the sirens on because you're rushing to get a donut. That isn't true. You literally can't do that.
not for us. No, I've seen it done in my hometown by the town police. But no, you can't, because if you put your lights on and you exceed the speed and you cause somebody to look in the rearview mirror and they see you and they pull over and they hit a pole and you weren't actually engaged in responding to something, you're now criminally liable. And
Wow,
That's
that's a different
oh
perspective.
yeah. So, and I like I said, everybody. I used to say, ever since Afghanistan, people have a tendency of liking and supporting the military more. But when I first got in the 80s, it was a whole different story. Um, I used to say that everybody, or like, the civilians hate the military, but even the military hate the military police. So everybody hated us, because we were the ones that were enforcing the laws. But it's changed a lot. So it's a lot nicer when people actually come up and they say thank you for your service and stuff like that. But
So then tell me, if that is that strict there, so then how do you come home and possibly detach from what you're doing now, and all of a sudden you're a husband and a dad, and you was just out with a gun patrolling? Did it affect your behavior when you come home?
oh, greatly, greatly, because you can't shut that off. And some of the things that you see during your shift, you can't just go home and turn that off. So all of a sudden you're having nightmares of the traffic accident, the fatal accident that you attend, or the attempted suicide, or whatever. Like you've got all these different things running through your mind, and you've got to shut it down so that you're not affecting your family. But on the same, you can't really talk to anybody either, right? At that point, in those days, you couldn't talk to anybody because if you did, then you were sort of an outcast. Like, who's this guy whining and crying? We all go through that, right? Um, so it was hard to turn off. Ultimately, after 2 years in Pakistan with all the stuff that went over there, I wasn't able to shut it off, so I shut down. I developed PTSD, severe depression, suicidal, and that's why I pulled the pin over in Pakistan, because I figured I could do another good 10 years, but it was just I couldn't do it anymore. I just been away from my family for 2 years, and that was enough.
Wow. Can you talk? Are you allowed to talk to us about Afghanistan a little bit?
Uh, I was I was flying in and out of Afghanistan. Like I was 2 years Pakistan. I spent 6.5 months in the Middle East, and I wasn't deployed to Afghanistan, but I was in charge of the aircraft security, and we flew daily into Afghanistan, like Kabul and Kandahar, and then returned. So like it was 12-hour return flights. But I was not actually posted there, so I didn't do 6.5 months there or something, but I was there quite regularly with the aircraft that we were flying in on. So,
Lots of times, I've been away from, let's say, my family or my wife. I think the most when I was doing my music was a month and a half. I just about figured, whoa. And then I thought of you guys in the military. What's the longest you've been away from your family where you couldn't see them?
well, I spent the first 6 months in Pakistan before I was able to fly out and meet them. We met in Germany for a couple of weeks, and then it was like I think the longest was I think 6 to 8 months between visits. But I was in Pakistan 2 years without them. I spent um, 6.5 months in the Middle East. Um, yeah, but I did get to see them after 5 months, so before coming home. So yeah, it was a little while.
Brent, I just want to say this at this point. I thank you for what you've done, buddy. I really do.
Thank you. It was
From the
my
bottom of my heart.
thank you.
When things changed in my mind, I've been in the Dallas airport a lot and different airports. I walk up to the military and shake their hand and just thank them for what they're doing and that we appreciate them. And
Well, thank you.
that's incredible. So Pakistan, Afghanistan, and you have all this happening. You know who you are, you know what you're doing, you know what your job is, and then all of a sudden comes the day when you're done.
Yeah.
Isn't that how do you deal with that? I'm done. Like I'm
I
finished.
I just broke down. I I went from being a warrant officer overseas, making tremendous amount of money with danger pay, overseas pay, separation pay, my normal specialist pay as a warrant officer, to phoning up my wife and saying, listen, I got to quit. I'm coming home. So obviously she panicked and she's like, well, we can't lose all this money. Like, what are we going to do? And I said, well, at this point, I'm coming home one of two ways. It's either in the seat or under the seats. So you take your pick, right? But I just couldn't do it. And so when I went to my chain of command, and I'd say, hey, listen, like I got to talk about this, and I'm having a rough time, and they pretty well brushed me off. And when I said, well, listen, they wanted me to stay there another 2 years. And when I says, no, I can't do that, they said, well, if you don't like it, quit. So, okay, here's my release. And then they just made it hard for me even to get home. So it was just brutal. And I get home and I have nothing. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. So suicide was top of my mind all the time because I thought, well, if nothing else, with my pension and with my insurance, SISIP, that kind of stuff, Linda and the girls will be taken care of very well, right? But I thought, well, if I stick around and I'm no longer capable of working with that, then what do, right? So it was a tough decision, making that choice or not, because I know other people that just ended their lives over at these embassies. They couldn't face coming home. So
Wow, Brent, I cannot imagine that. I cannot imagine that.
yeah,
So then, wow. And meantime, I'm over here living life, trying to make business work, going up, going down. Life is a yo-yo, isn't it?
oh, it is. It
Life
is.
is a tremendous yo-yo, and I don't think there's any place on this side of eternity where now everything's just perfect, everything's just cool, and we're not facing these
Yeah,
mountains, these drastics.
yeah. But you know what? God uses everything for good. And what happened when I got back? I spent a couple of years licking my wounds, having my pity party, and then through Veterans Affairs Canada, they got me back into college. So I took a couple of years as a civil engineering technician, and then, but just as I was about to graduate that, I got a call from uh, OSIS, which is it's operational stress injury social support. So it's like one-on-ones, group meetings, that kind of stuff. There for ill and injured soldiers, airmen, sailors, that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
So when I got back, I just happened to walk out of the Veterans Affairs office, and this personal PSC, personal support coordinator, walked out of his office, introduced himself to me, and says, Brent, come on in. And I started going to these support groups in North Bay. And after a couple of years, he was leaving because his wife was still military. He was leaving to Ottawa, and they needed somebody to replace him as the support coordinator. So he recommended me up the chain of command, and I went through the hiring process and I got hired in November of 2014. And then I ended up being the peer support coordinator for 2.5 years. And I worked very closely with Veterans Affairs. And I was able to travel all the way like to Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins, Huntsville, Mattawa. That was my jurisdiction. And I would just travel around, go have coffee with these veterans and people that were hurting and be able to let them open up. And I gave a lot of talks to to units, different units around northern Ontario. And I was able to really be there for some people where I'd be having coffee with somebody in a Timmy's and they break down and start crying and say, I'm suicidal. And it's like, you know what, come with me, we're going to the hospital. And so God helped, or God used my problems to help other people over the last few years. And I still keep in contact, and I'm no longer in OSIS, but other than just a client again, I guess, or a peer support. But yeah, it's been an amazing opportunity to help others because I know how they're struggling, and I know what got me through, and I helped them do the same thing. So it's been an amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah, that is a horrible thing if you get to the place where you're just, God, I don't want to continue another day and I just can't step out another day. You know, a lot of times we just don't have a clue. So many times what's on the surface, you don't have a clue what's going on in that person's mind. You don't know that person's philosophy. And to me anymore, when I meet people, first thing I try to do is, how do they think? What's their philosophy? I want to get to know them before I go jump in and do business with them and stuff like that too quick, because I've jumped in already, and then I find out their way of thinking and the way I think is such opposite poles. There's not enough time in this lifetime to bring these two sectors together. The question I have, Brent, is so then there was the Brent I knew at the Little Red Barn when we'd get together, playing the accordion, have fun, joking and that. And then there's the
I never play the accordion.
yeah,
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
recorded. And then
I don't want to get beat up.
go through all these years and you lived a life, you lived 5 lives in one. So how did that affect your behavior? If I would go fishing with you, would I be sitting there and going, oh, this ain't the Brent I knew, or
No.
how do you think
You would never know.
behavior?
No. You would never know that there was a problem with me.
Okay.
I have a really good mask that I've had on for years and years, and that doesn't come off. So, I mean, when I'm out with people, I don't like people want to hear a funny story, or somebody asks. I'm open and upfront. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it to the best of my ability. But I don't really offer a whole lot. I found even with this OSIS groups, everybody would open up to me, which was what they were supposed to do. But even the people I was supposed to open up to, I wouldn't. Nobody, I just don't, I just, I don't know. It's just, I would rather hear other people's problems and try to help them than impose my problems on others. So, but.
What I found is my dad's school and a little bit after him, that age bracket, right after the Second World War, you try to get close to them in any way. They have a concrete wall around them, 200 feet high and 100 feet thick. You can go so far, but then you don't go any further. You don't really get in, see the person's soul. And so often I tried, like my late father-in-law, he was a good man, and I would try to really dig in deep, find the real person. They'd let you go so far, no further than I was. Oh, what bank do you bank at? How's the weather in Alberta? And you knew when you was being put off.
Yeah.
What is it about folks, do you think, this is a loaded question, is it that they've had too much hurt? They've had their trust broken too many times that they don't really let you in and say, hey, look, this is where I'm at. And how far in do you want to go? I find for myself, most people don't care enough about you to want to know.
I No, I don't think so. I think a lot of people are curious, interested, but are afraid to broach the questions. But again, there will be only so much that I would say, right? Just like any. But you know what? It's funny. Um, Being military, like I can talk to another soldier or airman, Navy, whatever. We can go into a coffee shop or a back room or something, and we can talk for hours, and we'll just open up completely to each other because we've been there, we know what it's like, and you don't have to explain what an IMP is or what HQ is or who's watchdog or this kind of stuff, like what it's like to be on sentry duty in a trench at like minus 30. Like you don't have to explain that to the guy because he knows that and he does it. So you can talk about other things and that stuff. So it's really easy. But then if you get a civilian in who doesn't know that stuff, then all of a sudden the conversation just goes quiet because this guy just doesn't get it, right? Like you can't explain what it's like to be in a foxhole at 3 a.m. at minus 30 and freezing your what off, and your commanding officer saying, well, when the enemy advances, you'll shoot until you kill them or they kill you. I mean, that's your option, right? So like you can't explain what you're going through with people that haven't done it. And the same thing is very similar with suffering from a mental illness like PTSD, severe depression, that kind of stuff. Not just military related or whatever, but even in trying to explain it to my wife and my kids, they have sympathy, or no, not sympathy. They have sympathy, something like that.
They
Anyway,
try to understand.
they try to understand, but if you don't have it, you don't understand the nightmares, the terror, the sweating at night, and just what's going through your mind. Like my wife still complains because every floor I go onto, we have a 4-level split I live in, and every floor has either a TV on or music. And I go on there, and it's not necessarily because I like what's playing. It's because if it's quiet, my mind starts going and going and going. I can't shut it off. So if I have that distraction, and even at night, I have a noisemaker beside me, like a white noise, like thunderstorms, that kind of stuff there. Because if that's not on at night, I can't get to sleep. Because if it's too quiet, my mind starts going back and I can't do it. So, but you can't explain that to somebody that's never experienced it. So like they care and they want to help, but eventually they just like, I don't know what to do for you. Well, there's nothing you can do for me. Like I'm already seeing therapists and I'm on medication and stuff. So, I mean, I'm getting all the help that I can. It's just something I've got to live with. But, you just it can't explain to somebody that doesn't
Wow.
experience it.
So back a sentence or two ago, it's like you have your own culture when you're in the military. It's like if you come out of a certain sect of people, that sect will always gravitate to each other because they understand the slightest little things that people do. And in the same way in the military, it's got to be a closeness. It's got to be a oneness that people who aren't in it can understand. Well, that's tremendously heavy. So here's
Don't mean to be so heavy and downer on your show.
No, you're not being heavy and down. These are actual questions, that I have. What's a real way to help somebody in them situations? Everybody has their theories, but I say, unless you've been there, done that, you really don't understand. I have another question, Brent.
Sure.
These gentlemen that are gone a year at a time from their wives, the percentage of them that come home and everything continues normal, isn't I can't I when normal is here, it's hard to work things out and get along, let alone being gone for a year at a time and stuff like that. How do
Yeah.
you deal with not having your wife? That's a hard
Um,
question. If you don't want to,
yeah, you keep busy. Like, I mean, you're busy on deployments anyway, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of downtime where, like, at least in my experience, um, yeah, there was times that I was working like 36 hours straight, just from one reason to another. Uh, but it just, yeah, you just keep busy. You keep your mind focused on what you're doing, and when you get your call, your phone call, like these are the days before the internet and stuff. So back in the days, you phone home like once a week or so, and you talk for 5 or 10 minutes, you said hello to everybody, and then you hung up and tried to get right back to what you're doing.
so it's a tremendous mind game, isn't it? Probably the biggest battle is in the mind, isn't it?
Oh yeah, if you let your mind start to wander, you're gonna lose it. And I lost it.
I hate mind games. Oh, I hate them, bro.
Yeah, yeah. We
Yes.
used to have, like, I didn't understand it at the time, but a funny story, if you got a moment.
I have as much
Uh,
time as you need, Brent.
my very first exercise, we went out to uh, RV 87, which was Rendezvous 87. Big multinational exercise held up in Wainwright back in the days when we still did training and stuff regularly. And it was my very first exercise. I just joined a few months earlier as a military police. So it was a new experience for me. And I remember when we were packing up, we'd been there for several weeks um, on this exercise. And we had torn down our camp, put all of our modular tenting and all of our supplies, everything in one pile. And the master corporal, who was driving the deuce and a half, the big dually truck with the big canopy on the back and stuff, he would come into the camp and he would park on the other side of the field. And the warrant officer would say, okay, everybody, start packing this stuff, all the gear, to the truck. So we'd pick it all up, pack it up to the truck, thinking, why doesn't he just back up to the pile? So then, but we would load it all because you don't want to be back talking to your warrant officer. So we would do all this. We'd load up as much as we could on the truck. He would go with a couple guys. They would unload it in this warehouse. He'd be back in a couple hours, and he would park where the pile used to be. And the warrant would say, okay, grab all that stuff and now take it to the truck. And now we're like getting frustrated. Like, why doesn't this guy just pull up to where we, like you're not understanding and you're thinking this is just a mind game. But having been a warrant officer, you realize that you want to keep your guys busy, keep their minds occupied so that they're not thinking of other like non-productive stuff, right? So where to us it was like, this guy's insane, and there's easier ways of doing it. He had his own mentality of trying to keep us busy and focused on the task at hand. Because if you give us too much time to play, it's going to be hard to reel us in when it's time to work again, right? So it was an interesting time, you know.
So it is true that idleness is the devil's workshop, especially when you've seen too much and you're trying to get things off your mind and you're trying to get your
Yeah,
mind back and everything and try to
yeah,
bring some normality back in, eh?
yeah, yeah. That's when you get a little bit of time and you have a few memories that you don't want. Um, could be anything. You start turning to alcohol or drugs and pretty women and stuff, and it's nothing ever good comes of it. But that we're human, right?
It's a dead end street before you start, isn't it?
It is.
I just had a good friend of mine. He joined the military. He joined the police force in St. Louis. You know, young, eager, gonna be the best policeman there is. What advice would you give to some 20-year-old now that just hasn't seen it all, but he's tough, he's macho, nothing's gonna affect him, and he's just gonna be, you know, a policeman, a cop, a military police, like you did? What is the biggest thing he can do to guard himself, to protect himself so he doesn't crash?
Biggest thing, I used to deal with a lot of recruits and stuff when they come to me. The biggest thing I always told them was, the badge that you carry does not make you Superman. Treat others as you would have them treat you. Treat everybody with respect, and they will return until they don't treat you with respect. But that's the thing there. If you do it, they can be in the worst crisis. If you try to understand where they are and you treat them like a human being, you give them just an iota of respect, the outcome can be so much different. Just like Jesus said, treat others as you would have them treat you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm here. There was a lot of times there that I didn't think I was coming home, but at the end of the day, and some of the people that I've arrested, they would joke about it. Say, "Oh yeah, you arrested me when I was a young private, and this and that." And even military police that I've had to charge for breaking the code and stuff like this, we're still friends. It wasn't me that broke the law, and I didn't have to treat them like an a-hole because of it, right? They messed up. I've messed up. Treat them with respect, and yeah, you might have some consequences, but we can get through this together.
So there's an old saying is, oh, he'd give his mother or his grandmother a ticket. So it isn't that he's such a ruthless SOB. It's more that he keeps the law, or how do you look at a saying something like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I have a picture of me harassing my grandma Caldwell.
Okay.
But that was just for jokes. But yeah, some people would do that. They and whether they're very black and white.
Yeah.
Life is not black and white. You know what? You see somebody that cuts you off in traffic, and you give them the middle finger and you're cursing at them. But meanwhile, you don't know that his daughter is suffering from something and he's racing her to the hospital, or he just had this big thing happen and he's not paying attention and his mind is somewhere else. You take it so personally when somebody does this to you, but when you're in that position and you cut somebody off, you expect mercy. And it's like, you know what? Give that guy a little bit of leeway. He may not be thinking straight. He may not have intended to cut you off or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody got hurt. No harm, no foul. Let's just be good to each other.
I've done a lot of preaching in my days. And this is what I've done. Is everything, the things I preached on the hardest, I've broken the worst. And that's why the older I get, the more mercy I have on people, because life can wear you down. I don't care how strong you feel today, that if there's a continual drip, month after month, week after week, and year after year, it can wear you down where you snap, where you would not normally snap. I think about this here, just to bring this in, Let's say when bringing up that Bible character, old Mr. Job, when Job was suffering, if he had been in good health and suffered, there would have been something else losing everything. It would have still been terrible hard, okay?
Yeah.
But now take Job, fill him up with boils, wreck his health. Now he's sitting in an ash heap, and everybody's hurling insults at him.
Yeah.
It's something else when you're not mentally tight, and then life hits, it's 10 times harder. And then Job's wife says, hey, Job, just curse God and die. It's no small story. So I guess I say, listening to your testimony here and thinking about life, I say this, Lord, please don't let me have more than I can possibly handle. With all your power and everything, I don't want to blow it. I don't want to completely blow it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've got a lot of respect for you, buddy, and I want to thank you for what you've done. And I do love you, man. And a lot of my friends have asked me, where's Brent now? And people from the barn, first thing I says, I'm going to talk with Brent. They say, hey, I remember Brent. That's awesome. That's awesome. So is there anything else you have to tell us here before we wind up this session here, Mr. Brent? Any other story or?
Oh man, I could keep you all night with stories, carnival stories and all kinds of stuff. But no, I just want to say thank you. You brought me to the Lord many years ago. I needed it, and that's kept me alive. I mean, I can't see getting through all of the stuff I've been through without knowing that there is a God, there is a Jesus. He did die for my sins. And that's what keeps me going. It's like all those times I'd be running and I'd say, I'd hear a car coming from behind me and I'd say, oh, I hope this guy hits me. I just take me out, right? I had those thoughts every day. But I kept saying, I cannot commit suicide. I can't take my own life because my life is the Lord's. It has to be on his terms. So if he wants that truck to hit me and take me out today, I'm ready to go home. But I can't do it. That kept me going. When times are tough, and I thank you because you're the one that brought me to the Lord. So thank you.
Wow, Brent. We're going to have another session, my friend. This is just touching base after 26 long years, eh, mate?
Yes. We got to talk about something fun, though.
Yeah.
Not a real downer.
We will. No, this is
People
not.
are probably going to be asleep by now.
This is not a downer, buddy. I'll say this. I'll say, Brent, you're a fighter. You're not a casualty. You're what did I bring up when our meeting started? They were not the troopers. The Rangers. You're
Rangers,
a ranger.
yes.
You're a fighter. You're not a quitter. And you are not a casualty, Brent. You're awesome.
Thank you.
God bless you, buddy. We're going to be in touch. If you need anything, I'm here 24/7.
And I am too. If you ever need me, I'm here for you as well.
Thank you, buddy.
So God bless.
No man left behind.
No man left behind. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, bye-bye.